All right. Welcome into the half, everybody. My name is Aaron Montgomery, and you can find me at oursuccessgroup.com. This fine gentleman right next to me here is Erich Campbell, and you can find him at erichcampbell.com. Eric, it seems like we were just doing this.
Yeah, because we were.
Oh, yes, that's
We
right.
always say that, the best things we do in life are not sprints but marathons, and I think that's the way we decided to podcast this morning.
Marathon, right?
Literally back to back. We closed the show. There were 5 words, and it's the half. Like that's
That's right. Like we were like, up, okay, it's start go time, and we're here. So, Rich, hello. Thank you for being here with
thank
us.
you much, Rich.
And Ramona, good morning. Good to see you today again, Ramona. Thank you.
Yes.
Um, Mr. Frank Dunn joining us. Good afternoon, Frank. And yeah, we've got everybody checking in and saying hi. Barb, hello.
Hello.
Yusta, good
Out in Sweden.
afternoon,
Hello.
evening, whatever it is there in
I should look it up.
Sweden.
I didn't, but I should have.
We could, but we
We could.
didn't.
We
Yeah,
could. We didn't.
he'll let us know. So hey, you guys, let's get right into this. I appreciate everybody checking in, and saying hello. But what do you guys want to talk about, right? Because if you let Eric and I just run and go, that hey, we'll do that. But what do you guys want to talk about? Bring up the topics. What do you guys want to talk about? What questions do you have? What things would you like to discuss? What's going on in your business right now?
Yeah,
Maybe share a win, right? Share
that would
something
be
that
awesome.
has
Yeah,
gone
why
well
not?
for you, right? What are some of those things that we can do? So while we're waiting for that, Eric, we've
A
got
couple more
Woody.
highs to say. Yeah.
Yep, yep. I thought the last show was 30-minute one. No, that was an hour
Nope.
and 30-minute one.
That was just the bonus time from the two other guys spilling all the way into this show.
That's right. That's right. Yeah,
That's why we cut
indeed.
this one off. That is specifically why this one is 30 minutes and 30 minutes only, so that we don't just broadcast all day, as much as
That's
we
right.
probably would be fine to
Yeah,
do
yeah.
that.
Because you can, and don't forget, everybody, you can get more of Eric, and I know that you can't get too much of Eric, so you can get more of Eric at 3:30 Central Time,
Yes,
2:30
Indeed.
Mountain. Yep,
That's
yep.
true. The take up's still coming up. So if you absolutely must listen to 5 hours of me talk today, and I'm sorry, then
I
jump back
must.
on later for the take up.
I
But
must. I
yeah,
must. What's today's take up topic again, Eric? I know you just told
today's
us.
take up is stitch type interactions. So it's how different stitch types interact with each other and how to control that in your embroidery. So digitizing heavy topic, but it can also help people understand what's going wrong, even if they aren't digitizing, when they have issues, when
Yeah,
stitches clash, and also how they work with different materials. So that's coming up. Yeah,
yeah, yep.
for sure.
So Eustace says 18:30.
So yep,
So let's see
evening.
here. That.
Good
Yep.
evening. So
Yep.
it's
Good evening.
6:30 for those of us using 12-hour time. But
Exactly
yeah,
for us
1832,
Americans.
1800 hours.
There you go. So Lisa, good morning from sunny, soon to be hot Colorado. So
Boy,
no
hot and
snow.
humid
I don't know. For
already.
some reason, I always see these random snow pictures at times when you shouldn't see snow from Lisa. So
She's up there, but we've had a lot of humidity lately, so it's been like, okay, yeah, I prefer my desert back, thank you. It's
yeah,
great that we get it because we get droughts and we need the rain, but sometimes personally is difficult.
yeah. So the take up is at 10:30 p.m. for those of us on the 12 hour.
Yes, yeah,
Yes, yes. All right.
there we go.
All right. Alina says, "Hello, everyone. Thank God it's Friday. So it's been a rough week. So let's talk about
Hey,
it."
we can talk about it. Yeah, certainly. I mean, I'll say this much: sometimes there's work we want to do and work we don't want to do, and both of them are equally important. And sometimes we do that work we don't want to do, and it's still valuable. That's about knowing your business. I'm going to say my week has been full of work that I didn't want to do, that wasn't fun, but that made a lot of bottom line sense.
There you go. I like it. I like it.
That
I like
happens
it.
sometimes, folks.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. All right. Ramona says, I wish I could get more new users to your take up. Even if they have no interest in digitizing, it's still great education to know how things work.
And you know what?
100%.
Here's a thing that I've been hearing, and I'll fully admit to this. I know part of my brand is talk fast and talk a lot, and the take up is long. I am going to start doing a little bit more short form content. So there will be something like that coming up. My time is so limited that I don't know when it's coming up. But I will say this: new users, part of the problem they have is that it is very dense, and I know the take up is like going to the university class when what you need is the night school workshop. And I think that sometimes that happens to people. So I super appreciate you sending anybody who wants to come by, but I also understand when people are like, all right, I don't have an hour and a half to listen to Eric get technical about stuff. Sometimes that there's a valid point to that. So I'll probably have to do some more short form stuff in the future that's not just live spooling off for an hour and a half.
All right. So 30 minutes of the half just isn't is too much, or I'm
I
just
don't
kidding.
know. I don't. The half is great. I talk about topics that are probably not for the half.
Got it. Kidding. All right.
I got it.
Helen, hello from Baton Rouge. Baton
Nice.
Rouge.
Very nice. Thank you for being here.
And then this is Facebook user. I think this is a situation where if you're in a certain mode in Facebook, it does this to you.
Yep.
But I did go and look, and this is Marianne
Oh,
from
nice.
Santa Fe.
Yes. Thank you for being here as well. I'd love to have another New Mexican on the bead today.
Yep, there you go. And Clara from, well, not from anywhere, at least not what I can tell. But good morning, Eric, Aaron, and
It was good
Eric.
to
All
meet you,
right,
by the way, back when we did. But yeah, good morning. Happy to have you around. But
awesome,
yeah, so
awesome.
what we were talking about on the two-wheeler guys, why did it go into super bonus time? I think we got into some topics that are pretty interesting for everybody. We talked a lot about what it means to be in the government business and things that are beyond technical
Yeah.
skills. Something I would love to hear from you guys is what do you think is valuable that's not a decoration skill that you've brought to bear in your business over and over? If you guys who are live, I would love to hear from you. But
Yeah.
like I said, I'm going to put mine out there one time again. I have kind of a liberal education. And I don't mean that in a political sense. I have a more broad education. I did a lot of stuff that was about writing and communication, and I feel like that was super valuable to me. And I think learning how to communicate and write clearly was a massive win for just about everything I do in the industry. So I that's something I always kind of champion, learning to communicate in. It doesn't have to be that you have to go and take classes or get an English degree to do it, but I feel like that was something that's really important to me. And I'd love to hear, like, Aaron, do you have a thing that you find to be a skill, even if it's a total soft skill, not a trained skill, that you think made the most difference in your career that's outside of the technical?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's what led me to start our success group. I have discovered that my quote unquote superpower, so to speak, is this ability to kind of see the big picture and then be able to navigate through and kind of find the problems, right? So it's and this is, I think, why it's taken me so long to get to this point to understand what it is because it is a little bit hard to describe and hard
Mm-hmm.
to kind of put into words, but it's about like going, okay, what's the challenge? What's the problem? And then for some reason, my brain allows me to go, okay, let's, here's some things that we can try. Here's what kind of, here's the path through or around these obstacles. Um, but like I said, I've had a hard time describing that, right? I can see it. It's just a
Mm-hmm.
matter of like getting it into action steps. And I think that's what that skill of mine that I've been able to kind of bring to our success group is because I found that the common denominator,
Mm-hmm.
the reason that a lot of these problems occur for small business owners, the reason our industry has such a massive attrition rate, right? I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I love the fact that we get people coming on here and showing up and so they're staying with it, but I know that this is just a very small percentage of what actually happens
Yeah.
in our
Yeah.
industry, right? Our industry, I worked for a company that their claim to fame was that they got 30 new customers a day.
Mm-hmm.
But I knew the reality was that the active user base didn't fluctuate that much. Right. And
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
that's attrition. And it wasn't because the company was bad or the service was bad or, we were just trading customers with other people. The reality was that people go to a show, they invest their life savings into starting this business and they're not business owners. Right. And
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
okay. You don't have to be a business owner, but you have to build the foundation, right? You have to be able to solve those problems. And to me, I saw the problem being that they just didn't have a good foundation. We talked forever today, right? For a long
We
time
really
today
did. Yeah.
about marketing and understanding what branding is and I mean, all of these things are really important. And the reason why they're so important and why we put so much effort and emphasis on them is because that is your foundation, right? We have to know
Sure.
who our customers
Sure.
are. We have to find our niche. We have to, anyhow. So we could talk for another hour and a half on
No, but I like it.
that.
The concept of having a strategic overall view. I think that's a big thing for you. Is like I
Yeah.
can remove myself maybe from the grit of the thing, lift myself above it, have the 30,000 foot view, say here's what everything on the map, and then descend back into it and say here's the granular. And actually, what I would say is the clouds in the dirt.
Yeah.
This is what we was talking. The clouds in the dirt. You go up to the clouds and say, I have this overview of everything that's going on, but then you go back in and you have solutions you can apply after doing that. I think that's great. It's something to think about when people talk about being strategic. And the funny thing, when you're talking about the attrition rate in our industry and things that I've seen in that same space. It's when I always talk about how people don't want to do business to be in business, because we have these two kind of levels where like I'm a creative person, I want to do this cool artistic thing and make cool shirts is what it often comes out to, or cool patches or whatever it is. And then there's this other side where it's like I have to do business and sell things and deal with tax forms and everything else. But also that can be marketing, sales, getting out in front of people, making a message, and dealing with the physical shop, other stuff like that. And sometimes people are very imbalanced into which one of these things they're in. And you have to arrive at some sort of balance with that stuff, or find a way to make a team that does that.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of it. When people go out and get equipment, they have a great shirt idea.
Yeah.
And that's hard, because sometimes there are certainly people who would have been great brokers. That's the other thing too. There are some people who I'm like, what you are as an idea person who never needed to touch equipment, who should be working for somebody else, and or working to
being a broker,
to be a person who's doing like promotional products people. That's actually a much more classic way for them to work, because they don't produce a lot of what they do. The thing is, the director of apparel space, sometimes there's people who are meant for that too, I think. And it's hard, because I love to teach everybody everything. I really do. I love the technical stuff. I love the execution.
Sure.
But at the same time, it's something I have to teach embroiderers sometimes too. They'll finally just go, man, digitizing sucks. I hate doing it. And I'm like, then don't do it.
Yeah.
There are so many options outside of doing it yourself. We can find another way for you to work.
Shoot.
I'm like, here's what
Ramona.
you need to know to get by.
There you go.
Yeah.
Go to Ramona.
Ramona, or Justin, or Vitor, all these great digitizers we know who are in our spaces.
Yeah.
And it really, and Ramona does great work. Why not have Ramona do it? That's fine.
Yeah, absolutely.
But at the same time, it's like, I think we have these ideas, and maybe that's the thing that you deal with a lot. We have concepts that we get into our heads that seem to come from nowhere, that we built up, that then limit us from doing things we want to do or need to do. Because we're like, well, I can't be a real embroiderer if I don't digitize. It's BS. It's not true. Even though I'm a digitizer who just about always digitizes an embroiderer, it's not true.
Yeah.
And that if you have that belief in your head that you're never good unless you're doing it yourself, that's rough. And honestly, the other attitude, and I go two ways about this. I'm big about improving things about myself. I don't feel like I always hit the mark, but I'm big on doing that work. That's something I really believe in doing. However, there is another kind of way about this, and he's not my favorite person, but I do talk about him often enough because he's out there in the media. Gary Vaynerchuk, Gary V, who's been out there doing social media stuff and making his way for a long time. Don't always love everything he does, but one concept he brought up that stuck in my head and kind of infuriated me, but at the same time, because there was something to it, is he's like, I don't worry about my weaknesses. I don't worry about my weaknesses at all. I just play into all of my strengths and be the best person who does those things I'm naturally good at.
Yeah.
And then I get people to do the stuff, or I work with people who do things that I don't do.
Yeah.
And you're like, it messed me up. I can't tell you how many times that the mindset I had was that anything that's wrong with you is your fault, and you have to, beat that into the right shape like a blacksmith on an anvil, fix yourself, and constantly be working on everything. And his concept was like, no, there's a place you fit, and you just need to roll on that place you fit.
Yeah.
And that was, so I'll admit, that's the thing where I'm working on my levels on that right now. It's like, do I lean into what I am, or do I continually beat on these things that I think that I'm not, that I think I need to fix?
Yeah.
And that's
focus on the strengths, understand what your weaknesses are, so there's not blind spots for you. But if you focus on, because then you're doing what you're meant to do, right? You're filling your purpose, so to speak, if that's something. Anyhow,
but then I guess the other half of it, before we finish that up, the other half is something you said on Tubular Guys. The only thing I worry about with that, and this is like, once again, this is a question, not an answer. So I'm not teaching. This is a conversation I want to have. The only worry I ever have with that stuff is sometimes I've seen people use that as a crutch to like not do a thing that is just very necessary. That's part of their work. That's part of the work of being in business.
Absolutely.
And then they'll use the crutch of saying, "Oh, I'm just not good at taxes." And I'm like, well, you still got to file those. Pretty sure. I'm pretty sure they're going to find you if you don't.
Yeah.
There's certain things that you still have to do, but I think it's there's definitely a gradient of things you have to figure out how to learn, and certainly at the very least stop beating yourself up about things that don't necessarily have to be your business. Yeah.
Well, I mean, the truth is real success is just right outside of your comfort zone. And so that's what's happening there, right? It's like, oh, well, that's, like you said, potentially using it as a crutch or whatever. That's not who I am. It's not something I do well or whatever. Well, like you said, you've got to still do those things, right? So you have to figure out a way, whether that's hiring it out, whether it's, whatever, you have to figure out a way, but you have to make sure you're getting to those things outside of your comfort zone as well. And I think that's what the real key is pushing yourself. How do I, that's why I teach that webinar that I talked about that I'm going to be teaching at the Small Business Skills Summit, conquering fear and thrive, right? If we can conquer fear, if we can set up techniques to get beyond the things that scare us, right? Because fear is just a fantasized experience appearing real. um, but I think that not only can we overcome those fears, but I truly believe that then we can use those fears, we can utilize them to allow us to thrive, to do even more, right? And expand our comfort zone more quickly because we're now understanding what fear really is, and then it's just a sign that we need to kind of learn a little bit more, figure out some help, right, and push ourselves a little bit more, right, do a little bit better job in this case because the fear is an indicator. It's just like a check engine light, right? in a sense.
I find the same thing with people who are worried about sales. Sometimes when people are saying, I don't want to be too salesy, I don't want to push what I'm offering, that sometimes when you really get down to it, it's because they lack confidence in their product or their skill.
Absolutely, 100%.
And what the real thing they're saying to you, though they're not saying it, and they're not even admitting it to themselves, is that they're worried that what they're offering isn't good enough.
Correct.
A lot of the time, all they have to do is be shown what else is out there in the market and say, do you think your stuff is as good as this? And the funny thing is most people go, oh, mine's better than what I saw there. And I'm like, okay, then why aren't we sharing that?
That's right.
Why don't you want to sell it? What is it what's the thing that's actually blocking you up? And usually it's not because I don't want to appear like the used car salesman, which is always the argument. I don't want to be selling people lemons. I'm like, okay, well, don't make lemons and you won't be selling people lemons. Go, I don't make lemons. Oh, then you're already there. Like you're not making bad product, then it's okay.
Yeah,
I think
totally.
that's hard. Don't get me wrong. These skills of like walking up to a random person and saying hi, that is a real thing. If you got social anxiety or something else, that's a real thing. That's difficult.
But that's not what we're saying.
Real.
Yeah.
But we're talking about offering a product out there in the market and getting it in front of people. You sometimes have to think about that. And I'll be honest, there are times where I've done that myself, where I look back and go, you know what, I'm not skilled up enough. The reason I'm worried about selling this product is because it's got a flaw. And I do need to work on the product. Mm-hmm. That doesn't happen as much, honestly, as just having a confidence issue. You're having a hiccup where you need to look at that in a kind of a cold light and look at what else is on the market and go, all right, no, I'm providing a good product. I can trust that. I know that it's good. It's when you definitely there's this point where you can look at a product and say, I'm offering a thing I'm not ready to offer.
Yeah,
that can be real, and you have to make some alterations. But most of the time, it's that you're setting a standard for yourself that probably is over and above the standard people are expecting.
Yeah. But here's the other part of that, Eric, too, that I think, again, this is where, again, I feel like my superpower is because if I go up here, I understand that if you go back far enough into this, if you go back into why you started your business to begin with and you have clarity in that, right? Because you didn't start your business to make money. You could go do a lot of other things to do that. That might be what ultimately, but why do you have to make money and why do you have to do this business to do that, right? And getting clarity on that, because once you have an understanding and clarity on that, then now when you have that confidence issue, you can go back and go, well, is my why strong enough, right? Does my why overcome that confidence issue? Because ultimately what you're doing is you're taking away an opportunity. I think I mentioned that on Two Radio Guys.
Totally.
You're stealing an opportunity from somebody to, have you fulfill your purpose, right? And that's what we're kind of meant to do. So anyhow, that's where we get real big picture. But you can go all the way back to that point and go, wait a second, maybe this isn't aligned with my why. So maybe that's where the confidence issue is coming from.
Oh, absolutely. I think most of the time you have those things that you're grinding up against are probably, if not like a limiting belief system or something like that. And we don't have to get fuzzy. Literally, it's something where you're just not sure about something. You need to review it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and it could be internal. It could be about your motivations. It could be the product itself. It could be that you're worried about. And I actually see this on people opening up e-commerce. I'm like, sometimes I'm like, yeah, maybe you really do. You need a little more education on how it works first. You need to know how to accept payments, and you're going to feel good once you actually stop and go, what are the questions you really need answered? And the other thing sometimes this means, as much as I have honestly done a lot of DIY in my life, as far as my work goes, I've done most things myself. Sometimes it's good to hire someone who knows something, to get in an hour with a consultant who really knows their stuff, and have someone walk you through the parts that are bugging you.
Yeah.
Because sometimes all you need is a little hand up. It's hard when we teach ourselves that we can't ask for help, but sometimes it really does make the entire difference.
Yeah.
Is having somebody just go, all right, I'm hearing where you're coming from. I know what's going on. Here are some resources you probably need, and you're going to feel better once you get through them.
Yeah.
It's entirely possible it comes from that place, and that's why we also champion education so much.
Yeah. 100%.
It gets us past that place pretty frequently.
Yeah. All right. Well, Eric, let's.
Got some comments.
Half is about interacting with folks, so I know you get us on a topic and we'll go. But Clara did clarify for me. I appreciate that. California. Okay.
Yep.
Woody says, spent 15 years in aerospace manufacturing. Cool. Never knew all the building blocks that were there for owning my own business. CMM programming, quote reviews, new business planning, contract reviews. It was just awesome. Now I just need to successfully execute. So there you go.
Yeah, ahead of the game, Woody.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Ramona says, I think a lot of what happens is the sales force is doing their job, get the customers all hyped up and excited, but when they get the equipment, they have no idea where to go from there. It's the push start and money falls out expectations, and we all know that doesn't work. And I think that's true, right? It is a situation where the salespeople are doing their job. Think about the distributors, the people in our industry that have traditionally been responsible for all of the education. That they know that they're going to get 30 new customers a day because there's such a low barrier of entry to come into our space a lot of times. Now, embroidery is always kind of, it's a little bit more, but compared to other businesses you could start, you can still get in on a hobby level, right? On that kind of level. And so traditionally they've been the ones bringing the education. So they're going to get you excited about the products and all the opportunities, and that's their job. But the reality is business takes some foundation. It takes some business planning. It takes some of these non-decoration skills that you have to level up a little bit to be able to be ultimately successful. So, the tools will work. You just got to be able to feed those tools, right?
I don't think that salespeople are necessarily doing anything that's like predatory. We make that joke all the time.
No.
But I will admit that sometimes in the service of not scaring someone off, they sometimes are not going to talk to you about that stuff. It's why, admittedly, I do like some of the conferences that have independent educators, because if you have educators who are, pitching a booth, then you have to understand that's part of what's there. Doesn't mean that their education content can't be valid. You can teach someone very valid stuff and still be coming from a company. But outside of that, it's good for you to understand things about, like we said, understand things about business outside of the industry. And in fact, that's also why I recommend to people, if you're getting into business too, hey, take some business classes from someone outside of the industry, not someone who's selling you the equipment. Learn some things outside, go outside, consume a little more broadly, listen to people who are not just literally inside the same industry as you are, because I think that it really broadens our ability to understand the wider markets out there. And it also just kind of, it expands what it's possible for you to know, so that you don't end up in kind of the echo chamber that can happen. Exactly. Much as I love seeing you guys every week, I love you also to be out there seeking some other thought leaders and people who might help.
Exactly. Well, in Eric, in a lot of ways, it's why, I had to start our success group, because I couldn't do the education that I know needed to happen when it was coming from a space of, here's my equipment and stuff too. Right. And it really is important to kind of understand, what's the real value of this? What's the real goal of this? And like you said, it's not predatory.
No.
That's their job. That's what they're supposed to do. And so understanding, that part of it, that it is supposed to be inspiration. Yeah. And yes, all the things they're sharing is exactly right. It can make all these things. It can do all these cool things. It can, all these processes are there, and it's all possible. Mm-hmm. But to make that possible in your business is a totally different conversation.
Totally.
Yeah.
And I'll also say things that are fully technical, some of
Excuse
that
me.
education, of course, it's fine for people to be talking about specific materials and stuff. I know Mike's got a point here now. I'll go ahead and call him out because Bill does great work. Bill Garvin's usually tied to a gun hole booth, but his education is universal. Very good. A good example of that. Yeah, absolutely. Same thing. You guys know that I work for Brilliance, and I make no mistakes about, or
Yeah,
no,
absolutely.
I make no misconceptions about that. But you guys see me working in different softwares and showing you
Absolutely.
different things, and I teach you about the generic nature of things. In fact, I'll actually credit Scott from Dax, because when we first started, he's like, you can't sell from the front of the room when you're teaching. That is not what we're going to do. We're never going to do that. I mean, and
Hmm.
yes, there's stipulations against that at other shows, but Scott was really about making sure value is there for the people at Dax. And it was exactly how I was already teaching in a way that I think is elemental. But I think that's why I teach the way I do. I teach things that are elemental and universal, and I think that's important. But I always fully admit where I'm coming from, or
Yeah.
working for at
Yeah.
any given period
Well,
of time.
you can see that. I mean, not to,
Sure.
just toot Scott's horn, but I mean,
Yeah.
the reality is Scott is the only one that pays the speakers what they pay the speakers, right?
This is true.
None of the speakers are making a living off of speaking, but Dax at least gives you an opportunity to break even,
Yeah.
right? I think in a
That's
lot of
true.
ways,
Yeah,
whereas
that's true.
other shows, if you're not there to sell something else,
Well, and hey,
it's
one of the
hard.
things I'll say too, if like I did education for the people at Madeira. You guys have seen me do stuff for them over the
Hmm.
years.
Yeah.
Um, when your goals align, if the goal is making embroidery good for
Yeah.
people, then
Yeah.
our goals are great. It's fine because yes, they tell you to use Madeira thread, but they're teaching you general knowledge stuff that you can
Yep.
do. And
Absolutely.
on top of that, it's like, hey, their goal is for you to do well in sales and to embroider correctly because they would like you to buy more thread. But that's a goal that you can meet with. It's a little different in different aspects of the business. I
Yeah.
think the
Yeah.
technical stuff often can be okay. There are moments where someone might say, okay, only our equipment does this. Maybe, maybe not. And certainly, it's
Yeah.
worth examining. It doesn't mean that you can't learn from somebody who's on a booth, for sure.
Totally.
Yeah,
Sorry, I thought you were closing up. I wanted to
that's all good.
get to Ramona's comment. His local
I
community
agree.
college is
Yeah,
great for small business education.
yeah.
Um, all right, so we're going to change gears completely here, Eric. Bobbin winder recommendation for
I knew you were
commercial
going to bring that
machines.
up. I'm going to have to admit that I don't have a good recommendation for this because we had bobbin winders at all the shops I was at, but they were like purchased in a bygone era. I just used what was in front of me. I'm going to admit that I have never bought a new one myself. If someone else has recently purchased like a bobbin winder or a cone breaker from someone, I would love some tips on what you feel about that.
Yeah,
For me, winder is a winder, and I'm going to be fully honest. In most of the commercial work I did, I was going to either have white or black bobbin. Now, in the area that I was at, it was weird that I had black bobbin and black stabilizer all the time. Everybody was using all white everything. It was
huh.
already something strange that I told people I thought having black was great. But at the same time, I know a lot of people now who like to use the Philtech colored bobbins. I was just buying the stuff I needed, not winding myself because of the time investment. But if you're doing
Gotcha.
stuff like you're talking about laces and things like that, yeah, it may make sense to wind.
Yeah.
That is true.
Ramona says I have one reasonably priced and very good. Gold
Well,
star.
thank
I'll
you.
get a link.
Awesome. Thank you, Ramona.
There you
Yeah,
go.
like I said, I'll be honest with you and say they're fairly simple machines, and so I don't imagine there's probably some amazing, new bobbin winding that I've never seen before. But maybe there is, and I'll have to admit that literally we didn't have I didn't have anything that I think is like incredible to to let you know. Machine manufacturers, whoever we were buying for, if we asked for one, we got one. Like
Yep. There we
that's
go.
how it was.
All right. So there's the link.
Thank you, Ramona.
Yep. Thank you, Ramona. Hello, Nikki. Good to see you. And
No, I
good
have to
have you
bring this
tuned
one that
in.
I love. Mike came on and said, "Hola,
Yes.
late today. Carry on. I'll allow it." Well,
Thanks
thank
for
you.
allowing that,
Thanks
Mike.
for
We
allowing us to
appreciate
go
that.
on, Mike.
Yep.
We
Yep.
appreciate it,
Yep.
buddy.
Yep. And Woody, Cindy is saying hello. So
Hello.
wanted to pass that on as well. We're just the mediaries because Cindy's
Yeah,
on YouTube and Woody's on Facebook. So we have
so
to.
so we have to make sure everybody gets to see each
That's
other.
right. That's right. That's right. That's right. All right. Well, we
All
got a
right.
couple minutes left, guys. Where else do we need to go? Again, don't let Eric and I guide this thing. As you can tell, we'll go on forever about things that we're passionate about, but we're here to talk to you guys. Great show today, and it will be part 3. So tune in on September 30th for that. About the management side of things, about managing the business, managing employees, day-to-day operations, efficiencies, things like that. So let me tell everybody how this kind of came to be. We were in a situation where we had a guest drop last minute, and it kind of came up like, okay, anybody have any ideas? And Eric brought this to bear, and then he brought in these nine topics that we could talk about. And as we looked at it, we should have looked at it and gone, okay, let's not start with pricing because that'll take us all day. But we didn't.
Yeah,
we just
went for it. Anyway.
We kind of Ron Burgundied it. It was on the screen and we read it.
I think that's often the case with us. We just go on with what we can.
Yeah. Something magic comes from self-wound bobbins that'll change some minds with a wink sign. I don't know what that tongue-in-cheek maybe.
Yeah. If we have self-winding bobbins, I'll be the first to let you know.
Awesome. All right. Well, I think that does it, Eric.
Did we look tired? Because I feel a little tired. That was a lot.
It was a lot. 2 hours of talking. Thanks, everybody. Talk to you soon.
Thanks for being here, folks.